Intersections, conversations. Frustrated, angered, confused, or just plain tired of the polarizing conversations about race? Not sure what to say, what to think, or even what to do? Well, you've come to the right place. As we move beyond the rhetoric to look for solutions that reduce health disparities and create better working environments. As my grandmother would say, it has to come up to come out. Welcome to our Intersections Conversations, where diversity, equity, and inclusion meet.
Building bridges with rich ties. In the halls of healing, where lives intertwine. Father sitting, it's your moment to shine. Under pressure every day, doing more with less. Yet through respect and compassion, we rise to the test. We're building bridges with rich ties.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive.
Yes.
And today we're going to be tackling a big one. Diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Huge.
Or, as you probably know it better, DEIA.
Yeah.
We have got a ton of great material from diversity expert Andre Koen.
Oh, yeah.
You've got videos, we've got presentations, articles, the whole
9 yards. And
it's more than just the concepts, though.
yeah.
It's really about uncovering those practical strategies
Okay.
that you can use every single day to help build more inclusive environments.
I love that. So it's not just like a
Thanks, Mary.
theoretical.
Right.
It's like we're giving people a toolkit
Yeah, exactly, a toolkit.
to take back to their world.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
before we get there, though, let's start with a question.
Okay.
Have you ever heard the saying, treating everyone the same is the only way to be fair?
Oh, yeah.
Koen uses a brilliant analogy to kind of challenge this idea.
Yeah.
He talks about watering a rose bush and a cactus with the same amount of water,
So on the surface, it sounds fair.
right? Equal treatment.
Yeah, equal treatment.
Right, but just like those plants have different needs,
Right.
so do people. And so
Yeah,
ignoring those needs in the name of fairness
right.
can actually really backfire.
Totally. And that's what I love about this analogy, because it's that aha moment
Yeah,
where you realize, oh, intention isn't enough.
right.
Like,
It's not the end all be all.
it's not enough to just be like, oh, I'm going to treat everybody exactly the same.
Totally.
Because that's not,
There's so many nuances.
there's so many nuances
Yeah.
that we have to unpack.
Mhm.
And that's what we're going to be doing in this deep dive.
Exactly.
So we're going beyond those buzzwords.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're going to get into the nitty-gritty of unconscious bias microaggressions.
Yes, love it.
How to navigate those tricky conversations, and even the fascinating world of neurodiversity.
And they're all interconnected,
Yes.
right? Understanding one piece really helps you understand all the other pieces.
Right.
And so you're not just learning information in isolation. You're really building a framework for a more inclusive approach to life, both professionally and personally.
So let's kick things off with one of the biggest hurdles I think we face in DEIA work,
Yeah.
our unconscious biases.
The sneaky little assumptions.
Yeah, those sneaky little assumptions we all have often without realizing it.
Like driving on autopilot.
Yeah.
We're not consciously choosing to be biased,
Right.
but those ingrained thoughts and beliefs are still steering our actions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they lead us straight into a microaggression.
Yeah, those microaggressions are tough because they can be so small, but so hurtful.
Yeah.
And Koen gave some examples that were painfully relatable, like assuming that all women are overly emotional,
Right.
or that all Asians are mass whizzes.
Or in meetings,
Yeah.
interrupting someone because of their gender.
all the time.
And that happens all the
Right,
time.
we've all seen it.
Right.
And often unintentional.
Yes.
Right. And that's part of the problem.
Right. We think we're making a harmless observation or just a joke.
Yeah.
But the impact can be much deeper.
Yeah.
So just imagine constantly facing those little digs day after day.
Right.
It can chip away at your self-esteem, make you question your belonging,
Yeah.
and even lead to chronic stress.
Right,
It's
yeah.
death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Right.
Individually, they might seem minor,
Right.
but collectively, they can cause real damage.
So how do we combat something that's so ingrained and often unconscious.
Right.
Like we're not mind readers.
Exactly. And luckily, we don't need to be.
Okay.
Koenen highlights the power of cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT.
Okay.
No, it's not just for managing anxiety or depression.
Right.
It can also help us become aware of and challenge our biases.
CBT for DEIA work.
I love it.
That's not something you hear every day.
I know.
Okay, so how does that work?
So let's say you catch yourself thinking, women just aren't as assertive as men, so they're not as good at leading. CBT would push you to examine that thought.
Okay.
Where is the evidence?
Right.
Have you actually observed that to be universally true? Or are you letting stereotypes cloud your judgment?
Okay.
And so...
And that's where it gets interesting.
Yes.
Because it's not just about changing your thoughts. It's about changing your actions.
Absolutely.
Based on that new awareness.
Mm-hmm.
So next time you're in a meeting and a woman shares an idea,
Right.
you're less likely to dismiss it.
Exactly.
Because of that unconscious bias that you've now challenged.
You're essentially rewiring your brain
Right.
to respond differently.
Yeah.
Now it takes practice, but the more you consciously identify and challenge those biased thoughts,
Right.
the more your behavior will start to shift.
Got it.
And that's where the real change happens.
So it's about being more mindful of our thoughts and how they influence our actions.
Yes.
But what about when we do find ourselves in those tricky conversations
Yes.
where sensitive topics come up?
Like race or gender.
Yeah. Race, gender, those can be minefields.
Navigating those conversations effectively
Right.
is another skill set altogether.
Right.
And it starts with understanding that conflict isn't inherently bad.
Okay.
In fact, Koen argues that it can be an opportunity for growth and positive change
Okay.
if we approach it with the right mindset.
Got it.
He calls it the obstacle illusion.
Obstacle illusion.
I love that term.
Yeah. Okay. Break that down for me. What does that mean?
So think about a time you felt stuck in a conflict. Maybe a coworker was blocking your project,
Yeah.
or a family member disagreed with your choices.
Right.
We often perceive the other person as the obstacle
Yeah.
to our own happiness or success.
Like they're standing in our way.
Exactly, like they're the reason why we can't get what we want.
Right.
But Koen challenges us to reframe that perception. Instead of seeing them as the obstacle, what if we saw the situation itself as the obstacle?
Okay.
And by working together, communicating openly and honestly, we can overcome that obstacle together.
So it's like turning a tug of war
Exactly.
into a team building exercise.
Yes.
Where we're both pulling in the same direction.
Yeah.
To move that obstacle out of the way
I love that analogy.
instead of against each other.
Yes, it's about finding common ground and working collaboratively
Wow.
towards a solution.
So how do we actually do that?
Right.
What are some practical tips for these potentially explosive conversations?
So Koen suggests a few key strategies that are really, really helpful.
Okay.
First, ditch the need to win the argument.
Okay.
Instead, go into the conversation with empathy,
Okay.
genuinely trying to understand the other person's perspective.
So listening to understand,
Yes.
not listening to respond.
Not listening to respond exactly.
Okay.
And when you do respond, use I statements
Okay.
to express your feelings and needs without blaming or accusing the other person.
Right.
So instead of saying, you always interrupt me,
Yeah.
try saying, I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted because it makes me feel like my ideas aren't valued.
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
Like
It
that.
shifts the focus
Right.
from attacking the other person to expressing your own experience.
Yeah.
And of course, active listening is key.
Oh, for sure.
Reflecting back what you've heard shows the other person you're making a genuine effort
Right.
to understand them.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, it helps you avoid misunderstandings and keeps the conversation on track.
It's like a check-in.
It is.
You know, like, are we on the same page here before we move forward?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And finally, manage your emotions.
Oh.
Even when things get heated, try to stay calm and avoid getting defensive.
Easier said than done.
I know it's hard.
Yeah.
But take a deep breath, pause, and respond thoughtfully
Mm-hmm.
rather than reacting impulsively.
It's so easy to say things
It
and regret later.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's a good reminder.
Absolutely.
Koen also mentions these 4 agreements for better communication.
Yeah.
Which maybe we'll get into a little bit
Great
later.
to dive into those.
But I love this idea of
It's
building a
just-
foundation for those tough talks.
It's not about avoiding conflict altogether.
Right.
It's about learning how to engage in a way that's respectful, productive,
Right.
and ultimately leads to greater understanding and connection.
And speaking of connection,
Yes.
let's move on to a concept
Yes.
that highlights the power of our collective responsibility,
Oh, yeah.
the bystander effect.
Yes.
Koen uses a real-life experiment
Mm.
to kind of illustrate this, and it's pretty shocking.
Oh, it is.
He describes this "what would you do" scenario,
Mm-hmm.
where a Muslim woman wearing a hijab is verbally abused
By a bakery clerk.
by a bakery clerk in Texas.
Texas.
And what's disturbing is that many customers witnessed this,
They did.
but chose not to intervene.
They chose not to intervene.
And this is just a classic example of the bystander effect, right?
Yes, the more people,
The more people who witness something wrong,
the less likely anyone is to take action.
right, it's like, we pass the buck.
Diffusion of responsibility.
Right, someone else will call the police.
Right.
Someone else will say something,
Someone else will do it.
and then nobody does.
And then nobody does.
But there's also that social pressure.
Oh, totally.
Like, we don't want
I
to
don't want to stand out,
stand out,
make a scene.
make a scene, be judged for overreacting.
Right. Or like even
Yeah.
just like that awkward silence when somebody tells an offensive joke.
We
We all know it's wrong.
We all know it's wrong.
But nobody wants to be the one to call it out.
Exactly.
So we just sit there,
Uncomfortably complicit.
uncomfortably complicit.
Yeah.
But
Not everyone remained silent
okay.
in that bakery experiment.
Okay, good.
Some people did speak up, becoming what Koen calls
Okay.
upstanders.
Upstandard. Okay, so that's
Right.
that gives me a little bit of hope.
Yes.
So what makes somebody an upstander?
Right.
Is it just a personality trait? Is it just something you're born with?
Yeah. Or can anybody learn to be one?
And that's what's so empowering about Ku's message.
Okay.
Anyone can learn to be an upstander.
Okay.
It's about shifting from passive observation to active participation.
Got it.
Recognizing that we each have a responsibility to speak up against injustice, even when it's uncomfortable.
So it's not about being fearless.
Right.
But about acting in spite of our fear.
Exactly.
Okay. I like that.
And to help us become more effective upstanders, he introduces this LIFE model.
The LIFE model.
Yes.
Okay. What is that?
So it stands for lead with your values,
Okay.
identify your role and your biases,
Mhm.
feel your emotions and how they might be influencing your response.
Okay.
And finally, evaluate the situation and choose the most effective way to intervene.
Wow. That's awesome.
Right.
So it's like a step-by-step.
They did it.
Help us move from frozen bystander to empowered upstander.
I love that.
I love that.
Yeah.
So it's about making that conscious choice.
Yes.
To not just be a witness,
Right.
but to be an active participant in creating a more just world.
That leads us to another crucial aspect of DEIA work,
Okay.
one that often gets overlooked,
Yeah.
neurodiversity.
Yes, this is something I've been wanting to learn more about.
Oh, me too.
And it's about recognizing that there's a whole spectrum of ways
Yes.
that people's brains work.
Exactly. Neurodiversity embraces the idea that there's no one right way for a brain to function.
Yeah.
It challenges the traditional view of normal and celebrates the unique strengths and challenges that come with neurological differences.
So it's moving beyond these labels like disability
Yes,
and instead appreciating the diversity of human experience.
precisely.
Okay, I love that.
So Koen highlights some specific examples of neurodiversity,
Okay.
including things like autism, ADHD, dyslexia, and even anxiety and depression.
Okay.
And he points out that many of these conditions are invisible disabilities, meaning you can't always tell someone is struggling just by looking at them,
Right.
which means our own assumptions and biases
Yeah.
can prevent us from seeing and understanding their experiences.
It's another reminder to lead with empathy
yes,
and recognize that everybody's fighting battles we might know nothing about.
right.
But instead of just focusing on the challenges,
Yes.
what are some of the unique strengths
Right.
that come with neurodiversity?
So Koen emphasizes the incredible resilience, problem-solving skills,
Okay.
and out-of-the-box thinking that neurodivergent individuals often bring to the table.
It's like flipping the script.
It is.
You know, what might be seen as a weakness in one context
Right.
can actually be a superpower in another.
Exactly. Imagine a workplace that embraces those diverse ways of thinking.
Right.
It's a recipe for innovation.
Yeah.
Right.
It's about creating a world where everyone feels like they belong,
Yes.
regardless of how their brain is wired.
And where everyone has the opportunity to contribute their unique talents and perspectives, which is ultimately the heart of DEIA work.
This has been such an insightful
It has.
deep dive into Andre Koen's work so far.
I know.
And it's clear that DEIA is more than just a checklist
So much more.
or a buzzword.
Yeah.
It's about fundamentally shifting our mindsets and behaviors
Absolutely.
to create a more just and equitable world.
And it's about recognizing the interconnectedness of all these concepts.
Yes.
Unconscious bias, microaggressions, psychological safety, and neurodiversity.
Yeah.
They all play a role in shaping the environments we create and the experiences that we have.
We've covered a lot of ground already, but there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, there is.
In the next part of this deep dive, we'll delve deeper into psychological safety,
Yes.
Koen's unique approach to leadership,
Love that.
and what it truly means to build a culture of belonging.
I can't wait.
Don't go anywhere.
We'll be right back.
Welcome back. I'm still kind of buzzing from all those incredible insights from the first part of this deep dive into Andre Koen's work on DEIA.
Well, me too.
We tackled some pretty big topics, unconscious bias, navigating those difficult conversations,
Yeah.
the bystander effect, and even got a little glimpse into the world of neurodiversity.
Yeah.
But there's so much more to explore.
There is, and all of those concepts we've discussed so far really play a role
Yeah.
in shaping one of the most critical elements of an inclusive environment, psychological safety.
Okay, psychological safety.
Yeah.
It's a term I hear a lot these days,
Mm-hmm.
especially, in the context of teamwork leadership.
Right.
But if I'm being honest, I don't always know if I fully grasp it.
Right.
What does it actually mean?
So think of it this way. Imagine you're in a meeting
Okay.
and your boss asks for ideas on a new project.
Mm-hmm.
You have a thought, maybe a bit unconventional, a little outside the box.
Yeah.
But you hesitate to speak up.
Right?
You're worried about what others might think.
Yeah.
Will they judge your idea?
Mm-hmm.
Think you're incompetent?
Right.
Maybe even laugh at you?
Woof, I've been there.
Right. And that's where psychological safety comes in. Okay. It's the feeling that you can speak up, share your ideas, even your mistakes or vulnerabilities,
Mm-hmm.
without fear of negative consequences.
Right.
It's knowing that you'll be heard and respected, even if your idea isn't perfect or popular.
So it's not just about being nice.
Right.
It's about creating a culture
Yes.
where people feel safe to take risks, to be themselves,
Mm-hmm.
to contribute their unique perspectives without feeling like they'll be punished for it.
Absolutely. And Koen argues that this sense of safety is absolutely essential
Okay.
for fostering creativity, innovation, and high performance in any team or organization.
It makes sense. If everybody's walking on eggshells worried about saying the wrong thing,
Exactly.
they're not going to bring their full selves to the table.
Right. And that means you're missing out on a wealth of potential.
It's like trying to paint a masterpiece with only one color of paint.
I love that.
You need that diversity of thought,
Yes. You need those different perspectives.
the willingness to experiment,
That willingness to challenge the status quo.
to create something truly remarkable.
Exactly. And
Right.
that's why Koen emphasizes that psychological safety
Yeah.
isn't just a nice to have.
Right.
It's a critical ingredient for success in any environment,
Okay.
from the boardroom to the classroom to our own homes.
So how do we actually build this sense of psychological safety?
Right. Is it just about being supportive and encouraging,
Yeah.
or is there more to it?
It definitely goes deeper than just surface level niceness.
Okay.
Koen suggests a few key strategies that can really help.
Okay.
First and foremost, it's about modeling the behavior you want to see.
Okay.
As leaders or even as teammates,
Right.
we need to be willing to be vulnerable ourselves,
Okay.
share our own mistakes, acknowledge our limitations, and ask for help when we need it.
So it's that lead by example.
Exactly.
Showing people it's okay to not be perfect.
Hmm.
We all make mistakes.
We're all in this together.
We're all in this together.
Right, and that vulnerability can be so powerful
Mm.
in creating a space where others feel safe to do the same.
Yeah. It also means actively listening to others, even when you disagree with them.
Okay.
Seeking to understand their perspective, acknowledging their feelings,
Right.
and validating their experiences.
So it's about creating that space where everyone feels heard and respected,
Exactly.
even if their views don't perfectly align with your own.
It's about disagreeing without being disagreeable.
Yes, I like that.
And it's also about being clear
Okay.
about your intentions and expectations.
Okay.
Koen talks about the importance of having clear ground rules and communication protocols
Mm-hmm.
so everyone knows what's expected of them.
Right. If you don't know the rules of the game,
Exactly.
it's easy to feel anxious and uncertain.
And that uncertainty can lead to people withdrawing or becoming defensive,
Right.
which ultimately undermines psychological safety.
Yeah.
So be transparent about your goals, be upfront about your feedback,
Okay.
and create a space where people can ask questions without fear of judgment.
So creating that clarity.
Yes, that sense of clarity and predictability.
Right, so people can relax, be themselves, and contribute their best work.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about unconscious bias, microaggressions, navigating those tough conversations, the bystander effect, neurodiversity, and now psychological safety.
It's all coming together.
It's all starting to come together
Yeah.
in a really powerful way.
It is. And all of these pieces contribute to what Koen refers to as
Okay.
values-based leadership.
Okay, values-based leadership. Tell me more about that.
What does it actually mean to be a values-based leader?
Yeah, is it just about being a good person?
Right. Or is there something more to it?
Yeah.
It's definitely about more than just being nice.
Okay.
It's about being intentional and purposeful in your leadership,
Okay.
making decisions and taking actions that are aligned with your core values.
Mm-hmm.
And it starts with self-reflection.
Taking a good hard look in the mirror.
Yes.
Asking yourself, what do I truly stand for?
What do I believe in?
Yeah. And more importantly,
Yeah.
am I actually living those values in my daily life?
Mm-hmm. Am I walking the walk, not just talking the talk?
Right. It's about that authenticity.
It is.
That people can sense.
They know when you're just saying the right things
Right.
versus actually believing and embodying them.
Yeah.
And that authenticity is a key ingredient in building trust,
Right.
which is foundational for psychological safety.
Yeah.
Koen also emphasizes that self-confidence
Okay.
is crucial for values-based leadership.
I can see how confidence is important for any leader,
Right.
but what's the connection to values?
So Koen believes that true confidence comes from knowledge and experience.
Okay.
The more you understand about yourself, your values, and the world around you,
Hmm.
the more equipped you are to make sound decisions and lead effectively.
Okay.
It's about having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's difficult.
So not about being arrogant
Right.
or thinking, everything.
And not about having all the answers.
Yeah, but about having the confidence to learn, grow, and admit when you're wrong.
Exactly. And speaking of being wrong, Koen highlights the importance of embracing failure as part of the learning process.
Right.
He encourages leaders to fail fast.
Fail fast.
Yes, and to view setbacks as opportunities for growth and improvement.
So having that growth mindset,
Exactly.
seeing challenges as stepping stones
Yes.
rather than roadblocks.
And that leads to the next key trait
Okay.
of values-based leadership: humility.
Humility, that's not a word you typically associate with leadership.
I know, right?
We often think of leaders as strong, assertive, maybe even a little ego-driven.
Right, but Koen argues that humility is actually essential for effective leadership.
Right.
It's the recognition that you don't have all the answers,
Right.
that you can learn from anyone, and that everyone deserves respect regardless of their position or title.
So it's about leading by example,
Exactly.
not by force or intimidation.
Humble leaders are approachable, they listen more than they speak,
Right.
and they're willing to roll up their sleeves and work alongside their team.
It's about being a servant leader. Focus on empowering others
Empowering others.
rather than seeking power for yourself.
And finally, Koen emphasizes the importance of positive influence.
Okay.
Values-based leaders inspire and motivate others by living their values and encouraging others to do the same.
So it's about creating that ripple effect
It is.
where your actions inspire others to act in alignment with their own values.
Precisely, they create a culture of trust, respect, and accountability where everyone feels empowered to do their best work.
Wow. So to be an effective leader, according to Koen, we need to be self-reflective, confident, humble, and influential.
It's a tall order.
It's a pretty tall order, but it's also incredibly inspiring.
It is.
It's about being more than just a boss. It's about being a role model,
Yeah.
a mentor, and a champion for others.
And ultimately, it all comes back to the core of DEIA work,
Yeah.
creating a world where everyone feels like they belong
Right.
and has the opportunity to thrive.
I love that. And speaking of thriving, there's still more to uncover in this deep dive.
Yeah.
In the final part, we'll explore some powerful stories and statistics, dive into Koen's specific strategies for fostering inclusion, and wrap up with some key takeaways that you can apply in your own life.
Can't wait.
Stay tuned.
Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into the world of DEIA with Andre Koen.
Yes,
We've already uncovered so much.
we have.
Those sneaky ways unconscious bias impacts our actions.
Right.
The power of psychological safety
Yeah.
in creating those truly inclusive environments.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm ready for more. What else does Koen have in store for us?
Well, one of the things that really struck me about Koen's work is how he uses real-life stories and data
Yeah.
to bring these concepts to life.
Okay.
You know, he doesn't just talk about abstract ideas.
Right.
He shows you how they play out in the real world.
Yeah, I love those real-world examples.
Me too.
It makes it so much easier to connect with the material,
Yeah.
see how it applies to our own lives.
For instance, remember when we talked about neurodiversity
Yeah.
and invisible disabilities?
Yes. Koen shared some statistics that were
Wow.
pretty eye-opening.
Okay.
Did you know that 1 in 5 adults in the U.S. experienced mental illness every year?
Wow.
And that's just one example.
Okay.
He also highlights how 15% of Americans live with an autoimmune disease.
Okay.
So we're talking about a significant portion of the population
Right.
facing challenges that aren't always visible.
Yeah, those numbers really hit home.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that we need to create spaces that are welcoming and accessible
Absolutely.
for everyone,
For everyone.
regardless of their visible or invisible struggles.
And Koen doesn't just focus on the challenges.
Right.
He also highlights the unique strengths that
Yeah.
come with neurodiversity. He interviewed several people about their experiences, and one quote that really stuck with me,
Yeah.
they described it as having 7 radio stations playing in your mind at once,
Wow.
both music and talk radio.
Okay.
It's hard to know which station to pay attention to.
What a vivid way to describe
I know.
the neurodivergent experience.
Yes.
Makes you realize that what might be perceived as a weakness in one context
Right.
can actually be a strength in another.
Exactly. Imagine harnessing that kind of multifaceted thinking
Right.
in a workplace or a team setting.
Yeah,
That's a recipe for innovation.
for sure.
And that leads us to Koen's specific strategies for fostering inclusion.
Okay, let's get practical.
Right.
What are some of the things we can all do,
Right.
regardless of our roles,
Yes.
to create more inclusive environments?
So Koen emphasizes the power of language.
Okay.
He encourages us to be mindful of the words we use,
Okay.
avoiding terms like normal or regular
Right.
that can create a sense of otherness.
It's about recognizing that everyone has their own unique experience.
Exactly.
And that what's normal for one person might not be for another.
Exactly. He also talks about the importance of active listening, showing empathy and acknowledging different perspectives,
Yeah.
even when we disagree.
Yeah.
It's about creating a space where everyone feels safe to share their thoughts and feelings
Right.
without fear of judgment.
Those are all skills
Yes.
that we can work on,
Absolutely.
no matter where we are in our, careers or lives.
Mm-hmm.
But what about for those of us in leadership positions?
Yes.
What specific actions can we take
Right.
to build more inclusive teams and organizations?
So Koen stresses the importance of being proactive in providing reasonable accommodations
Okay.
and offering flexibility to meet the diverse needs of our teams.
Okay.
He also suggests that leaders take the time to get to know their employees on a personal level.
So going beyond that surface level,
Yes.
really understanding their individual needs and challenges.
Both professionally and personally.
Yeah.
And once you have that understanding, you can create a culture of open communication where
Right.
people feel comfortable asking for help or sharing their experiences.
So it's about moving beyond simple compliance
Right.
with DEIA policies and building a workplace
Yeah.
where everyone genuinely feels like they belong.
That's the goal.
It's a powerful vision.
It is.
It's about creating a space where everyone feels valued, respected, and empowered to contribute their unique talents.
And that brings us back to Koen's core message.
Yeah,
That building a more inclusive world starts with each of us.
I love that.
It's about those small everyday actions, those moments of awareness, empathy, and courage
Right.
that can make all the difference.
It's about choosing to be an upstander,
Yes,
not a bystander.
it is.
It's about recognizing that we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable world.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been such a great deep dive into Andre Koen's work.
It has.
It's given us this framework for understanding the complexities of DEIA practical strategies for fostering inclusion and a renewed sense of hope
I feel it.
that we can all be part of the solution.
Absolutely.
So as we wrap up, I'd love to hear what resonated most with you.
Well, for me, it was just that reminder that even small actions can create a ripple effect.
Yeah. And what about for our listeners out there, what small action will you take today
Right?
to create a more inclusive environment, whether it's in your workplace or in your personal life?
Absolutely.
Just remember, the journey to a more just and equitable world begins with a single step.
Love that.
Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.
Intersections, Conversations. Talk is cheap. We have explored key issues in developing better human relations, but it means nothing if you don't do something with our conversations. Race and differences are just obstacle illusions, so do something right where you are. Well, that's it for this Intersection Conversation, where diversity, equity, and inclusion meet.